Hello everyone, welcome to our weekly series of at-home recipes. I'm Oscar Gonzales, the executive chef of the Fairmont San Francisco. For week 2, we're going to spice it up for Cinco de Mayo and make everyone's favorite tacos. We will also make fresh guacamole and homemade salsa. Let's begin by marinating our beef for our tacos. We will need fresh grated garlic, onion, achiote paste, onion powder, and garlic powder. Achiote paste is a natto seed powder that you can find at any Mexican section of your grocery store. If you do not find that, you can use paprika, you can use, whether it's smoked, you can use this Cajun spice, any sort of spices that's gonna give you that smoky flavor. This is how we'll make our marinade. You'll take your achiote paste, put that in a bowl. You'll take your water. Make sure the water is warm, and you'll start to break down that paste until it gets nice and liquidy. Your paste will obviously dissolve at one point. Once you have it pretty much dissolved, you will take our grated garlic, put that in. Mix that well. Grated garlic just keeps all the nice oils inside, and it gets very aromatic and pungent versus smashing the garlic or cutting it too small. We'll take now our garlic, a little bit of garlic powder. 1 teaspoon is more than enough. We'll take onion powder, add 1.5 teaspoons, should be enough. And then we'll get that mixed up with our marinade. Make sure all those gets nicely incorporated. Once everything is nicely and then dissolved, go ahead and take some fresh julienne onions, put that inside. And get that nicely mixed up. And this will be our marinade for our beef. Today I'm using a flat iron steak. You can use skirt steak or a bavette for your tacos. We're gonna go ahead now and put our marinade that we made onto our meat. That way it can marinate for at least 4 to 6 hours, okay? And what we'll do first is put some of the marinade on the bottom of our meat. Put some of that juice and that onion on the bottom. And I'm gonna take 1 squeeze of lime juice and just squeeze it all over. Some of that acid into it so it helps break down our meat. We're gonna put that down into our plate, and we're gonna take our rest of our marinade and just spread that all on top of our meat. Take a little bit more lime juice and just let all those juices and spices penetrate our meat, and we're gonna let that sit for, like I said, at least 4 to 6 hours. That way it'll start to break down the protein tissue and soften our meat for our tacos. For our salsa today, we're gonna need 1 onion, 4 Roma tomatoes, 1 jalapeno, and 1 clove of garlic. You'll add 2 cups of water to your vegetables, and you'll let that simmer for about 20-25 minutes until your tomatoes start to burst. Once the tomatoes burst, we'll turn that down and let that cook for a couple more minutes, and then we'll take that mixture and put it into the blender with two stems of cilantro. After 20 to 25 minutes and your tomatoes have fully bursted and cooked, we're now gonna take our tomatoes, our onions, our jalapeno to blend our salsa. Okay, we're gonna take a couple leaves of cilantro. I'm gonna put that into, I'm using a Ninja Bullet as my blender. You can use any blender you have, Vita Prep, whatever blender you may have at home. Once your salsa is fully blended and it's nice and pureed, you're gonna take that salsa and we're gonna put it back into the pot. Making sure everything's inside. Salsa back on the stove to reduce and let all those flavors incorporate and get a little bit more robust as all the water from the tomatoes and all the vegetables starts to evaporate. It'll get it more intense. And it'll thicken a little bit more. So we'll leave that to cook for, let's say, another 10 minutes. For the guacamole, I've taken the avocados, I've peeled them, I pre-sliced them just to give me a little bit of heads up. I will now just kind of rough dice the avocado. It doesn't really matter what shape or size you cut, because they're gonna go into this little mixing bowl. I have this cool little tool that's kind of a smasher. So we're gonna take this smasher and mash our avocados until they're nice. Release all the oils and it gets nice and smooth. But it's preference of how smooth you want it, right? If you want it chunky, if you don't, I prefer it a little chunky. So we're not gonna take this too much further than this. A couple more times, and it's probably the consistency that I like my guacamole. Now we're gonna take a little bit of lime juice. I'm gonna squeeze that puppy in, smash it a little bit more. We're gonna finish this with some cilantro, freshly chopped, not too finely chopped. I like cilantro to have a little larger leaves. That way, when you bite into it, it's very fragrant, right? I like to add nice jalapenos to it, just for texture and crunch. Not to overpower the avocado, but just to give it a nice texture when you're biting into it, and everything's not so smooth. We'll finish this guacamole now. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt. Of course, this is to taste, so your preference. And then we'll give it another little nice mixture. And we're gonna go ahead and taste this. Extra little pinch of salt. Let's add a little bit more lime juice, a little bit more acid. Give it a nice mixture. And there you have it. Our guacamole is nice and ready. We're gonna cool that in the refrigerator, keep it nice and cool for our tacos a little later. Our beef should be just about ready now. So we're gonna grab our beef out of the refrigerator. It's been about 6 hours or so. Should be fully marinated. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start to just pull these onions off of it a little bit. We're gonna transfer it to another vessel. We're gonna save these onions and this salt and this marinade and sweat that off. We're gonna caramelize it. And once our meat is fully cooked and seared and grilled and it has that smokiness, we're gonna add these onions into the mixture of our beef for our tacos. So now I'm gonna take a little bit of salt. I'm gonna season our beef and be a little generous with the meat, with the salt. Season both sides. A little bit of fresh cracked pepper. And we're ready to grill. Get a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. That into the pan so it's nice and hot. Get that smoking to get a nice sear. Take our meat beef. We're gonna sear that one on one side. We're gonna start to let the proteins caramelize. It's probably gonna be about 2 minutes on one side, and then we're gonna flip it over and let that cook for about another 3 minutes on the opposite side. And our meat should be nice and ready, medium rare, for our tacos. We're on the next step, and now we're gonna start to caramelize our onions with our marinade of with the lemon, the lime, the meat, all those juices. Our pan is piping hot. We've added a little bit of olive oil. You've got to almost hear that sound when you put your onions in, so they can start to caramelize right away. Now we'll wait till our onions start to brown until they caramelize. Let's let them sit there. And don't try to move them around too much. Let it do its thing. The sugars will start to come out of the onions and brown a little bit. We'll add a little bit of salt. Meanwhile, we're gonna start to cut our meat. And then we'll put our meat back into our onions to get that reheated and start to enjoy our tacos. Okay, we're ready now with our onions, and our achiote paste is nice and caramelized. As you can see, there's some brown spots. Just be careful, as the paste may burn quickly, so you have to be consistent on tossing so the paste doesn't burn. Okay, so now when you have these nice caramelized from the sugar of the onions and the achiote paste, we can now add our beef back into the mixture and finish that to cook, as we left it pretty rare. Put that back on the fire. We'll leave that to cook about 1 minute or so, and then we're gonna toss this around, let it cook a little bit on the other side for about another minute or so, and then we'll start to warm up our tortillas and finally build our tacos. We finally have our meat ready. It's topped off with a little bit of chopped cilantro. We finished to taste salt and pepper, some fresh lime juice, our tortilla chips, fresh cabbage, our hot salsa, and then our guacamole. We have fresh queso fresco, and we have a nice, beautiful jalapeno and cilantro margarita. Our tortillas are nice and warm, and now we're gonna enjoy one taco. Put a little bit of guacamole down. I like to put a little bit of meat next, with those beautiful caramelized onions. Okay, we're gonna add some cabbage. There you go. I'm gonna take a little bit of queso fresco just to finish it off. There you go. And then a beautiful homemade salsa for our taco. Okay, beautiful taco for our Cinco de Mayo holiday coming up. Now we're gonna taste. Fantastic taco. We're gonna wash that down with our margarita. Absolutely stunning. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. Enjoy.